Be inspired by this royal king's horse guard unbelievable kind act. The sun had just begun to rise over the sprawling royal palace, casting golden rays across its magnificent walls and sparkling gardens. Birds chirped happily in the morning air, and the scent of fresh flowers drifted gently through the corridors. It was another busy day in the palace, a place where everything had to be perfect, from the gardens to the horses in the stables. The palace was alive with activity, servants scurrying with baskets, cooks preparing delicious breakfasts, and courtiers discussing the plans for the upcoming royal ceremony. Among all the bustling people was a young horse guard named Aaron. He was not from a noble family. In fact, his background was humble, but he carried himself with dignity and respect. Aaron had a quiet strength that made him noticeable without him ever trying to draw attention. From the moment he had arrived at the palace years ago, he had a special way with the horses. While others treated them as part of their duties, Aaron treated them like friends. He understood their moods, noticed when they were uneasy, and somehow always knew the right way to calm them. The stables were his favorite place in the palace. The smell of hay and the soft nickers of horses made him feel at home. He often spent long hours there, brushing the horses' coats until they gleamed, checking their hooves for stones, and whispering gentle words that seemed to soothe even the most nervous animal. The horses trusted him completely. There was one horse, a beautiful chestnut stallion named Arlo, who was especially attached to him. Arlo would nuzzle Aaron's shoulder every time he entered the stable, a silent greeting that made Aaron smile no matter how tiring the day had been. On this particular morning, the palace was buzzing with extra excitement because the king had announced that a grand ceremony would take place that week. Nobles from faraway lands would visit, and everything had to be flawless. Aaron knew his duties would be more demanding than usual. He would need to make sure the king's prized horses were well prepared, clean, and calm for the parade. While many guards were busy polishing swords, arranging carriages, or practicing drills, Aaron's focus remained on the animals. He moved from stall to stall, humming softly as he brushed their coats. The sun streamed through the high windows of the stable, making the dust particles sparkle in the air like tiny stars. Aaron paused by one stall, patting a gentle mare named Leela on the neck. She whinnied softly, leaning into his hand. It was moments like these that made Aaron love his work. Every horse had its own personality, and he enjoyed discovering what made each one feel safe and happy. As he walked further into the stables, something unusual caught his eye. In the far corner, a horse stood quietly, its head lowered, its eyes dull and tired. Aaron's heart sank. He had seen this horse before, a beautiful black mare named Selene. She had always been full of energy, playful and alert, with a coat that shone like midnight silk. But today, something was wrong. She barely moved when he approached, and there was a stiffness in her legs that made him worry immediately. "Selene, what's the matter, girl?" Aaron whispered, kneeling down to check her hooves. His gentle hands ran along her legs, feeling for any injuries or discomfort. The palace staff were rushing past, preparing for the day, but Aaron remained focused, his attention fully on Selene. She flinched slightly when he touched one hoof, and he noticed a small swelling that had gone unnoticed by others. He frowned, his mind racing. The ceremony was only a few days away, and the king would expect every horse to be in perfect condition. Many guards might have ignored her, thinking she was just tired or moody, but Aaron knew better. He could not let her suffer. Selene deserved care, patience, and time, even if it meant delaying his other duties. Aaron quickly fetched warm water, clean cloths, and herbal ointments from the small storeroom in the stables. He cleaned the swelling gently, speaking to her in soft, calming tones. "There you go, Selene. Easy now, it's okay. You'll feel better soon." He worked carefully, making sure not to hurt her. Despite his own exhaustion, he refused to rush. Every movement was slow and deliberate, full of kindness. Hours passed, but Aaron did not notice. He barely stopped to eat, too focused on making sure Selene was comfortable. Occasionally, he would glance toward the palace corridors and see other guards laughing, carrying out orders, or polishing the grand carriages for the ceremony. None of them seemed to notice him, but that did not matter. He had made a silent promise to Selene. She would be safe, and she would heal. By late afternoon, a small crowd of curious staff had gathered near the stables. Some whispered to each other, surprised to see one guard so devoted to a single horse. "Why is he spending so much time on just one animal?" one maid asked quietly, but Aaron did not respond. He had no need for recognition. The warmth of Seleni's trust and the soft nuzzle she offered in return were reward enough. As the sun began to set, casting long orange shadows across the stables, Aaron finally stepped back. Selene was calmer now, standing steadily on her own, her eyes brighter than before. Aaron wiped the sweat from his brow and allowed himself a small smile. He felt a deep satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing you have done the right thing, even when no one else notices. That night, as he lay on the simple bed in the small guard quarters near the stables, Aaron thought about the day. He thought about how easy it would have been to ignore Selene, to follow the usual routine and focus on the preparations for the ceremony. But he knew he could not. True care, he realized, required courage and patience, even in quiet, invisible ways. And so, in the golden light of the palace morning and the quiet calm of the stables at night, Aaron's connection with the horses deepened. He did not need a medal or praise. What mattered to him was their safety, their happiness, and the trust they placed in him. Little did he know, his kind and patient nature would soon catch the attention of someone very important, the king himself, and that one simple act of care would set off a chain of events that would inspire everyone in the palace to remember the power of kindness, even in the smallest actions. The next morning, the palace was even busier than usual. The grand ceremony was only a few days away, and every corner of the royal grounds seemed to hum with energy. Courtiers in colorful robes hurried from one hall to another, carrying scrolls and decorations, while servants polished golden ornaments until they gleamed. The cooks were already preparing a special feast, filling the air with the rich smell of fresh bread and spiced dishes. Outside, the gardens sparkled with dew, and fountains glistened under the rising sun. Everything was being prepared to impress visiting nobles and guests from faraway lands. Amid this flurry of activity, Aaron entered the stables with a quiet determination. While others were swept up in the excitement, he had one important task on his mind, taking care of the horses. Each one was precious to the king, but to Aaron they were also friends. He moved from stall to stall, brushing their shiny coats, checking their hooves, and speaking softly so they would remain calm. The horses responded to him in ways that made his heart swell with quiet joy. Even the usually energetic Arlo would lower his head, letting Aaron stroke his mane as though saying, "Thank you for caring for me." When Aaron reached Selene's stall, he noticed a small change. She was standing a little taller than the day before, her eyes clearer and her movements steadier. But there was still a stiffness in her legs, and she flinched slightly when Aaron approached. It was a small injury, nothing serious, but enough to make him worry. "Good morning, Selene," he whispered, kneeling to inspect her hooves. "You're doing better, but we still have some work to do. Don't worry, I won't let you struggle alone." Aaron carefully cleaned her hooves again, checking for any swelling or soreness. The other horses watched curiously, their ears flicking toward him. Even though the stables were crowded, Selene remained calm under his touch. There was something special about the way she trusted him completely. It was a bond built on patience, kindness, and respect, something that could not be rushed or forced. As Aaron worked, one of the senior guards walked past and noticed him tending to Selene. "Why spend so much time on just one horse?" the guard asked, raising his eyebrows. "There's so much to prepare for the ceremony. The king's horses must be perfect. You could be helping with the carriages or polishing the saddles." Aaron looked up, a small smile on his face. "I am helping, but in my own way. Selene needs care, and if she's not ready, it will affect her, the other horses, and the ceremony. Every animal here matters, not just the ones everyone notices." The guard shrugged and walked away, shaking his head. He didn't understand why a young guard would spend hours on a single horse when there was so much else to do. But Aaron didn't mind. Recognition was not what he sought. The quiet moments of trust, the gentle nuzzles from Selene, and the soft nickers from the other horses were reward enough. The day went on, and the palace grew busier by the hour. Courtiers carried heavy tapestries, musicians rehearsed in the grand hall, and the cooks prepared lavish dishes for the guests. The courtyard was alive with soldiers practicing formations, their boots echoing on the polished stones. Aaron, however, remained focused on Selene. He applied soothing ointments to her legs, gently massaged her muscles, and even brought her favorite hay from a special batch in the storeroom. By midday, the other horses in the stables began to sense that something important was happening. They watched Aaron's careful movements, as though they understood that his attention was not ordinary. Even the usually playful young foals stayed quietly nearby, observing the care he gave to Selene. The atmosphere in the stables became calm and peaceful, a quiet oasis amid the whirlwind of palace preparations. Aaron knew that his actions would take longer than anyone expected, but he didn't worry. He had learned long ago that patience was as important as skill. Rushing could make the horses anxious, and anxious horses could be dangerous. He worked slowly, speaking to Selene in a gentle voice. "It's okay, girl, take your time. We'll get through this together." Each word seemed to soothe her, and she stepped forward with more confidence, leaning into his hands as he brushed her coat. As the afternoon sun rose higher, the palace staff began to take notice again. A young maid carrying a basket of fresh fruits paused by the stable door. "Why does he spend so much time with one horse?" she whispered to her friend. "Does he not have other duties?" Her friend shrugged. "I don't know, but look at Selene. She looks so calm, almost happy. Maybe he knows something we don't." Aaron overheard the murmurs but didn't respond. He continued to work, his mind fully on Selene. He adjusted her blanket, carefully cleaned the small wound on her leg, and made sure she had plenty of water. By the time the sun began to lower, casting warm golden light across the palace grounds, Selene was standing steadily, her eyes bright, and her movements much freer than in the morning. For the first time in 2 days, Aaron allowed himself to relax. He leaned against the stable wall, wiping sweat from his forehead. The stable was quiet now, the horses calm and content. Even Arlo, who had been energetic and restless earlier, stood quietly, letting Aaron stroke his mane. The young guard felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had done what he came to do, care for his friends, protect them, and make sure they were safe and happy. As evening approached, Aaron glanced toward the palace gates. Courtiers and soldiers moved about, still preparing for the upcoming ceremony. The young guard thought about the days ahead. He knew the work would only get busier, and the expectations would be higher. But he also knew something important. Even amidst the grandeur, the noise, and the endless preparations, kindness and patience mattered more than perfection. If the horses were happy and healthy, the ceremony would be a success. And more importantly, everyone would feel the joy and trust that came from caring for others. That night, Aaron stayed in the stables longer than usual, making sure every horse had enough hay and water, adjusting blankets as needed, and quietly talking to each one. The stars twinkled above the palace, their gentle light shining through the stable windows. Aaron looked at Selene, who had finally settled comfortably in her stall. "Sleep well, girl," he whispered. "Tomorrow will be another day, but we'll face it together." As he finally returned to his small quarters near the stables, Aaron thought about the day's events. He realized that while the palace was grand, with its shining halls and golden ornaments, the true beauty lay in the simple acts of care, trust, and kindness. The quiet moments of connection, the gentle words, and the time spent helping those in need were what made life meaningful. Unseen by Aaron, someone else was observing his dedication that evening. A palace servant who had been passing by the stables had noticed the young guard's patience and care. "Who is he?" the servant whispered. "I have never seen anyone treat the horses like this. Even the king's advisors don't spend this kind of time. There is something special about him." Aaron did not know it yet, but his quiet, kind actions were starting to leave an impression on the palace. People began to notice that he was different, not because he sought attention, but because his heart was in the right place. His dedication to the horses, his patience, and his gentle ways were setting an example, even in a palace filled with grandeur and ceremony. And so, as the palace lights dimmed and the night settled softly over the grand walls, Aaron rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. He also knew that no matter how busy the palace became, his care for the horses would never waver. Selene, Arlo, and the other horses were more than animals to him. They were friends, companions, and a reminder that kindness, patience, and love could create harmony in even the busiest and grandest of places. The morning sun peeked over the palace walls, spilling warm golden light across the stables. Birds sang cheerfully in the gardens, and the faint scent of blooming flowers drifted through the air. Aaron, as always, was already awake, moving quietly toward the stables. Today felt different. There was a tension in the air, not from danger or fear, but from the pressure of the upcoming royal ceremony. The king's advisors had reminded everyone that each horse must be in perfect condition, and even small mistakes would be noticed. Aaron knew the stakes, yet he also knew that Selene, the black mare, needed patience and care more than anything else. As he entered the stables, Aaron noticed the other horses stirring with excitement. Arlo whinnied happily at his arrival, and the foals pranced playfully around him. Yet Selene stood quietly in her stall, her eyes following him with a mixture of trust and curiosity. Aaron approached her slowly, lowering his voice to a soft, comforting whisper. "Good morning, Selene. How are you feeling today? Ready to take small steps with me?" The mare lifted her head slightly, and Aaron could see the faint glimmer of energy returning to her eyes. He began with gentle stretches, guiding Selene's legs carefully to loosen the stiffness from the previous days. His hands were steady, his movements slow and deliberate. He spoke to her constantly, encouraging her and celebrating every small improvement. "There, that's it. Good girl, see? We're getting there together." Each word seemed to reassure her, and after a few minutes she took a small step forward, steadying herself with Aaron's gentle guidance. As the day went on, Aaron realized that caring for Selene was more than just tending to her wounds. She needed trust, patience, and emotional support. When other guards hurried past, rushing to prepare the horses for inspection, Aaron stayed close, never leaving her side. He adjusted her blanket when the sun grew warmer, offered her water frequently, and brushed her coat until it shone under the sunlight. Even the smallest movements, like a soft nuzzle or a gentle stroke, made a difference in her confidence. By late morning, a few palace staff had begun to notice Aaron's dedication again. One of the senior stable workers paused near the doorway, observing quietly. "He is still with her," the worker whispered to a fellow servant. "No one else would spend this much time. But look at her, she's standing taller, her coat is shining, and she seems calmer. There is something remarkable about this young guard." Despite the murmurs, Aaron paid no attention. His focus was entirely on Selene. He knew that real care could not be rushed. A horse could sense frustration or impatience, and Aaron had learned that trust was built slowly, step by step. He began leading Selene gently around the stable courtyard, holding the reins loosely so she could move freely while still feeling safe. She walked carefully at first, but with each step her confidence grew. Aaron encouraged her softly, celebrating each tiny success. Around midday, the palace gates opened briefly as a group of visitors arrived for a small practice of the upcoming ceremony. From a distance, Aaron could hear the sounds of laughter and conversation, but he remained unfazed. His world at that moment consisted of Selene, the rhythm of her steps, and the warmth of the sun on their backs. He noticed that some of the visiting nobles glanced toward the stables, their curiosity piqued by the calm and orderly horses. Aaron continued working, unaware that his patience and dedication were quietly making an impression on everyone who watched. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, a minor challenge arose. A group of younger horses in a neighboring stall became restless, kicking and neighing loudly. Their energy startled Selene, causing her to hesitate in her steps. Aaron immediately noticed her reaction and knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her neck. "It's okay, Selene. I am right here. You are safe," he whispered, letting her feel the calm strength of his presence. Slowly she relaxed, and Aaron resumed guiding her forward. The moment reminded him that trust could be delicate, but when nurtured carefully, it could overcome fear and hesitation. By late afternoon, Aaron decided it was time for a short break. He led Selene to a quiet corner of the courtyard, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves of a tall tree, casting gentle shadows on the ground. He offered her water and some of her favorite hay, speaking to her softly as she ate. He watched her carefully, making sure she moved comfortably and without pain. In those quiet moments, Aaron felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Selene, but to all the animals in the stables. He understood that caring for them was more than a duty, it was a privilege. As the sun began to lower, Aaron decided to take Selene on a short walk around the palace gardens. The gardens were empty at this time, the fragrant flowers and soft grass creating a serene path. He led her slowly, letting her explore while keeping her safe. With each step, her confidence grew. Passers-by occasionally stopped to watch the graceful mare walking calmly beside her young guardian. Children peered through the garden gates, whispering to their parents, "Look at that horse, and the boy seems to be so gentle." Word of Aaron's dedication had begun to spread quietly among the palace staff. Servants, guards, and even a few nobles were curious about the young horse guard who spent hours caring for a single animal, while others focused on preparations for the ceremony. His patience and kindness were unlike anything they had seen before. Yet Aaron remained unaware of the attention he was drawing. He did not seek praise. His only concern was Seleni's comfort and recovery. As evening approached, Aaron led Selene back to the stables. He brushed her coat again, checked her hooves, and made sure she had fresh water and hay. She seemed calm and content, a small soft nicker escaping her lips as if to say thank you. Aaron smiled, feeling a quiet pride in what they had accomplished together. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he also knew that with patience and care, they could face anything. That night, Aaron reflected on the day's events. He thought about how easy it would have been to hurry, to follow orders strictly, and leave Selene to manage on her own. But he had chosen a different path, one that required time, patience, and heart. He realized that true dedication was not measured by speed or efficiency, but by the quiet moments of care and understanding. Little did he know, his actions were beginning to reach the ears of someone very important. One of the visiting nobles, having watched Aaron in the gardens from a distance, spoke to a palace advisor. "There is a young guard with the horses who is unlike any I have seen," the noble said. "Even amidst the bustle, he is patient, calm, and kind. The horses respond to him as if they understand his heart. That is rare, even in a palace as grand as this one." Meanwhile, Aaron prepared for the next day, laying out clean blankets and checking the stable doors. He felt a deep satisfaction, not because anyone had praised him, but because he had done what he believed was right. Selene, Arlo, and the other horses rested peacefully, trusting him completely. He knew that the bond of trust he was building was more valuable than any medal or recognition. As the stars appeared in the night sky, twinkling like distant lanterns above the palace, Aaron finally allowed himself to rest. He closed his eyes, thinking about the journey ahead. The royal ceremony was approaching, and challenges would come, but he also knew that kindness, patience, and understanding could overcome any obstacle. The quiet stables, filled with the soft sounds of horses breathing and shifting in their stalls, felt like a sanctuary. Aaron lay awake for a while, reflecting on the day and planning for tomorrow. He knew that small, consistent acts of care could lead to big changes, and he was determined to continue his work with the same dedication, no matter how busy the palace became. In the heart of the grand royal palace, surrounded by gold, marble, and grandeur, a young horse guard quietly reminded everyone that true greatness was not in appearances or ceremonies, but in gentle deeds, patience, and the courage to care. The day of the grand ceremony had finally arrived, and the royal palace was alive with excitement. Flags fluttered in the wind, banners lined the pathways, and the polished stones of the courtyard reflected the sunlight like a golden mirror. Courtiers in elegant robes moved gracefully across the palace grounds, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Even the smallest servants scurried with purpose, carrying trays of refreshments or assisting with decorations. The palace, normally busy, now seemed to hum with a special energy, as if every stone, every tree, and every horse could feel the importance of the day. Amidst the preparations, Aaron was already in the stables, attending to the horses. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange. He moved quietly between the stalls, brushing coats, checking hooves, and offering gentle words to calm the animals. Even in the midst of such grandeur, the stables remained a sanctuary of peace, largely because of the presence of the young horse guard. Selene stood in her stall, her coat gleaming under the morning sun. She looked healthier, stronger, and more confident than she had in days. Aaron had worked tirelessly to ensure she was ready, but he knew that the day could still be challenging. He approached her slowly, lowering his voice to a soft murmur. "Good morning, Selene. Today is the big day. We'll go at our pace, just like always." "You can do this." The mare lifted her head slightly and nuzzled his hand, a small gesture of trust that filled Aaron with quiet pride. As he guided her through the stables, he noticed the other guards preparing for the ceremony. They were polishing saddles, adjusting bridles, and giving orders in sharp, hurried voices. Many of them barely glanced at the horses they were supposed to care for, focused more on appearances than well-being. Aaron, however, stayed patient and calm, understanding that the horses' confidence and comfort mattered far more than a perfect-looking parade. By mid-morning, the visiting nobles had begun arriving. Their horses were already in the stables, sleek and well-groomed, ready for inspection. The palace staff buzzed with activity, ensuring that everything appeared flawless. Amidst this grandeur, Aaron continued his quiet work, checking Seleni's hooves one last time and brushing her mane until it shone. His gentle touch reassured her, and she moved with confidence, ready for the day ahead. Word of Aaron's dedication had reached the ears of the king, who had decided to inspect the stables before the ceremony began. Dressed in his royal robes, he walked through the courtyard, observing the horses and their guardians. His eyes, sharp and thoughtful, fell upon Aaron, who was guiding Selene with careful, patient movements. The king noticed the calm in the young guard's manner, the trust in the horse's eyes, and the quiet focus that seemed to set him apart from the others. "Who is this young man?" the king asked one of his advisors. "He handles the horse with such care. Even in the midst of so much activity, he remains patient and calm." The advisor smiled. "He is Aaron, your majesty, a young guard who has shown exceptional dedication to the horses in the stables. Many say he treats them as if they are his own family." The king nodded thoughtfully and walked closer, observing Aaron as he guided Selene to the courtyard for a final warm-up. "Aaron," the king said gently, his voice carrying authority yet warmth, "I see the care you have given to Selene and the other horses. Tell me, what drives you to treat them with such patience and kindness?" Aaron looked up, slightly startled but composed. "Your Majesty, the horses trust us completely. If we are not patient, kind, and understanding, we risk breaking that trust. They are not just animals, our companions, and they deserve care and respect, just like anyone else." The king studied him for a moment, a thoughtful expression on his face. Then he smiled. "You speak wisely, Aaron. Many would focus only on appearances or orders, but you understand something far greater. Your dedication sets an example not only for your fellow guards, but for everyone in this palace." Aaron felt a warm rush of pride, though he did not expect any praise. He had never sought recognition. His reward had always been the quiet trust of the horses and the knowledge that he had done his best. Yet, hearing the king's words filled him with a deep sense of encouragement, reinforcing his belief that kindness and patience truly mattered. The ceremony began soon after. The palace courtyard was filled with nobles, dignitaries, and guests from far and wide. The horses were led into the parade formation, each one poised and ready, their coats shining in the sunlight. Aaron walked beside Selene, holding her reins gently and offering soft encouragement with every step. She moved gracefully, her confidence apparent to all who watched. As the procession began, the king observed from his elevated platform. His eyes scanned the rows of horses and their guardians, noting the precision and discipline of the parade. Yet, his gaze returned repeatedly to Aaron and Selene. The young guard's calm presence and the horses' steady, confident movements stood out amid the grandeur. Even the visiting nobles noticed, whispering to one another about the remarkable connection between the guard and his horse. During a brief pause in the ceremony, one of the nobles approached the king. "Your Majesty," he said, "that young guard with the black mare, there is something extraordinary about him. The horse follows his guidance without hesitation, and he treats her with a patience I have rarely seen. It is inspiring." The king nodded. "Indeed. That young man embodies the qualities we value most: dedication, kindness, and understanding. He reminds us that true greatness comes not only from wealth or power, but from how we treat those who depend on us, whether human or animal." The ceremony continued, and Aaron remained focused on Selene, ensuring she stayed calm and confident. His careful guidance allowed her to move with elegance, impressing everyone who watched. He whispered small words of encouragement as they walked, maintaining the bond of trust that had grown over the past days. With each step, Selene's confidence grew, and the other horses seemed to respond to the calm energy emanating from him. After the ceremony ended, the king called for a private moment with Aaron. He led the young guard to a quiet area of the courtyard, away from the crowd. "Aaron," the king said, his eyes kind and sincere, "your actions today have shown me the true meaning of care and dedication. You have reminded us all that patience, kindness, and respect can inspire greatness in ways that no ceremony or display can." Aaron bowed respectfully. "Thank you, your Majesty. I only did what I thought was right. The horses trust me, and I could not let them down." The king smiled warmly. "You have set an example that will be remembered long after today. I want you to know that your efforts are appreciated, not only by me, but by everyone who witnessed your dedication. You have shown us all that even the smallest acts of care can create a lasting impact. Aaron felt a deep sense of gratitude and humility. He had never sought recognition, yet the king's words filled him with quiet joy. It was a validation of his belief that true care, patience, and kindness always matter, even when others might not notice immediately. As the day came to a close, Aaron returned to the stables, where Selene and the other horses awaited him. He brushed her coat one last time, speaking softly as he did. "We did it, Selene. You were amazing today." The mare nuzzled his shoulder, a silent expression of trust and appreciation. Aaron smiled, feeling a deep connection with her and the other horses. The palace staff, who had observed his dedication throughout the day, began to speak quietly among themselves. "He is extraordinary," one said. "Even in the midst of all this grandeur, he has remained patient, kind, and focused. That is rare." Another nodded. "He reminds us that true leadership is not just about orders or appearance. It is about care, patience, and respect for others." As night fell over the palace, the stars twinkling above like tiny lanterns, Aaron reflected on the events of the day. The ceremony had been a success, and the horses had performed beautifully. Yet, what mattered most to him was the bond he had nurtured with Selene, the trust he had built, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had done the right thing. He understood now that recognition, though rewarding, was not the true measure of success. The real achievement lay in the patience, care, and love he had shown, and in the trust and happiness of those who depended on him. In the grand palace, with its shining halls, bustling courtyards, and noble guests, Aaron had quietly reminded everyone of the power of kindness, patience, and selfless dedication. And so, as the palace lights dimmed and the stables grew quiet, the young horse guard rested, knowing that his actions had not only prepared the horses for the ceremony, but had inspired everyone who had witnessed his remarkable care. He had shown that true greatness is not measured by wealth, power, or display, but by the patience, love, and kindness one brings into the lives of others. The day after the grand ceremony, the palace was quieter, though still filled with the soft hum of activity. Courtiers moved calmly through the halls, servants attended to their daily tasks, and the gardens glimmered under the gentle sunlight. The excitement of the previous day had left a lingering sense of joy and accomplishment throughout the palace. Guests who had attended the ceremony spoke in admiration of the horses, the pageantry, and most notably, the remarkable young guard whose dedication had stood out amid the grandeur. Aaron arrived at the stables early, as he always did. The horses greeted him with familiar nickers and soft movements, each one seeming to sense his presence even before he entered. Arlo whinnied happily, and Selene nuzzled his hand gently, a silent reminder of the trust they shared. The young guard smiled, feeling a warm sense of satisfaction. The ceremony had been a success, but more importantly, the bonds he had nurtured with the horses remained strong. He moved slowly from stall to stall, brushing their coats, checking their hooves, and speaking softly to each animal. Even though the grand spectacle of the ceremony was over, Aaron knew that care and attention were never complete tasks. They were ongoing, built day by day. Every horse deserved patience, kindness, and respect, and Aaron was determined to give them just that. As he worked, the palace staff began to take notice of the impact his actions had made. A few guards approached him quietly, curiosity in their eyes. "Aaron," one of them said, "we watched you during the ceremony. Your patience with Selene was incredible. We've never seen a horse move so calmly or confidently under anyone else's care." Aaron smiled humbly. "It's not just about Selene or the ceremony. It's about trust. The horses respond to kindness, not just instructions. If we care for them, they will respond with their best behavior. That's all." The guards nodded thoughtfully, realizing that Aaron's quiet approach was far more powerful than any order or display of authority. They watched him continue his work, brushing Selene's coat until it shone, adjusting her blankets and speaking softly to reassure her. His dedication was contagious, and slowly other staff began to adopt his calm, patient approach with their own animals. Later that morning, a messenger arrived at the stables, carrying a sealed note from the king himself. Aaron opened it carefully, his hands steady despite his curiosity. The note invited him to the royal hall to meet with the king privately. He felt a mix of excitement and humility. Though he had never sought recognition, the king's request felt like a rare and meaningful honor. Aaron quickly finished his tasks in the stables and made his way to the grand hall. The sunlight poured through the high windows, casting patterns on the polished floor. The king stood near a large window, his eyes bright and attentive as Aaron entered. "Come forward, Aaron," the king said warmly. "I wanted to speak with you personally." Aaron bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am honored," the king smiled. "Aaron, your actions during the preparations and the ceremony have left a lasting impression on everyone. But more than that, you have shown me the true meaning of care, patience, and leadership. You treated Selene and the other horses not as tools or possessions, but as beings worthy of respect and kindness. That is rare, and it is admirable." Aaron listened quietly, feeling a sense of warmth and humility. He had never imagined that his dedication would be recognized in such a personal way. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I believed was right. The horses trust us, and it is my duty to honor that trust." The king nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Indeed. Your actions remind all of us that true leadership is not measured by commands or appearances, but by the care we show for those who depend on us. You have inspired not only the palace staff, but also the visiting nobles. I hope that others will learn from your example." After their conversation, the king invited Aaron to walk through the palace gardens with him. As they strolled, the king spoke of how small acts of patience and kindness could ripple outward, affecting not only immediate surroundings, but everyone who witnessed them. Aaron shared stories of Selene's recovery and the other horses' progress, describing how patience and gentle guidance had helped them gain confidence. The king listened attentively, nodding and asking questions, clearly impressed by the depth of Aaron's understanding. Back in the stables, word of Aaron's recognition had begun to spread. Servants, guards, and even a few nobles stopped by to observe his work, not to judge or criticize, but to learn. Children peeked through the stable gates, eyes wide with admiration, while older staff whispered among themselves about the young guard who had changed the way they thought about care and patience. Aaron, however, remained focused on the horses. He brushed Selene's coat, adjusted her blankets, and led her gently around the courtyard. Each step reinforced the bond of trust they shared. He spoke softly to her as he had every day. "You've come so far, Selene. I am proud of you." The mare responded with a gentle nuzzle, her calm demeanor a testament to the patience and care that had been poured into her over the past days. As the afternoon sun rose high, the palace staff began to adopt Aaron's methods. Guards who had previously rushed through their duties started taking the time to speak softly to their horses, ensuring they were comfortable and confident. The atmosphere in the stables shifted from one of hurried preparation to one of calm focus, with every horse responding positively to the new approach. Aaron watched this quietly, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. His small acts of patience and care were creating a ripple effect, spreading throughout the palace. By evening, the palace had grown peaceful. The ceremony was over, the guests had departed, and the courtyard was quiet. Aaron led Selene and the other horses back to their stalls, ensuring each one had fresh water, hay, and clean bedding. He spoke softly to each animal, reinforcing the bond of trust and care that had grown over the past days. Even the youngest foals seemed to sense the calm energy, settling quietly into their stalls. That night, Aaron reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the first day he had cared for Selene, through the challenges of her recovery and the excitement of the grand ceremony, he realized that patience, kindness, and understanding were the true measures of success. Recognition and praise, though meaningful, were secondary to the quiet satisfaction of doing what was right. In the days that followed, the story of Aaron's dedication spread beyond the palace walls. People in the nearby villages heard of the young guard who treated the king's horses with patience, care, and respect. Children admired him as a hero, not for bravery or wealth, but for his gentle heart. Other guards and palace staff began to emulate his methods, creating a culture of kindness and trust that lasted long after the ceremony had ended. Even the king spoke of Aaron's example in meetings and gatherings. "True greatness," he would say, "is found not in display or power, but in patience, kindness, and care. Learn from Aaron, the young horse guard, who has shown us all what it means to lead with heart." Aaron, however, remained humble. He continued his daily routines in the stables, caring for the horses with the same gentle patience he always had. He knew that the trust of the animals and the quiet satisfaction of doing what was right were rewards far greater than any recognition. Every nuzzle, every calm step, every soft nicker was a reminder that kindness mattered more than grandeur. As the sun set over the palace, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Erin stood in the stables, brushing Seleni's coat one last time for the day. She rested her head gently on his shoulder, a silent expression of trust and gratitude. Erin smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that his dedication had not only healed and calmed the horses, but had also inspired everyone around him to recognize the power of patience, care, and compassion. The palace grew quiet under the night sky, the stars twinkling above like tiny lanterns. Aaron finally retired to his quarters, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. From humble beginnings, he had nurtured trust, patience, and kindness, and in doing so had inspired a legacy that would be remembered for years to come. In the grand halls of the palace, amidst the gold and marble, it was the quiet acts of care, the gentle touch of a young guard, and the unwavering patience with which he treated the king's horses that left the deepest impression. Aaron had proven that true greatness was not in display or recognition, but in the ability to touch hearts, build trust, and create a ripple of kindness that could inspire an entire palace. And so the young horse guard continued his work, day by day, step by step, ensuring that the horses he loved were safe, happy, and cared for. His story became a quiet legend, a reminder that patience, kindness, and dedication could leave a lasting impact far beyond what anyone could see. The palace would always remember the young guard who, through gentle care and unwavering dedication, inspired greatness in everyone around him.